Hey, welcome back to Get Down to Business. Every organization needs a continuous spark of innovation, fresh perspectives, and bold leadership to level up and stay mission ready. And far too often, unconscious bias, rigid bureaucracy, and the experience bias prevents senior executives from leveraging the natural talents and thought leadership of early career professionals. In high-stakes organizations, ignoring young talent creates friction, stagnation, and widespread burnout. True leadership requires us to bridge that gap, empower emerging leaders, and build sustainable alignment across every part of the organization. My guest today is a physician, executive, and professional development advisor who's dismantling workplace ageism and reshaping how we develop next-generation leaders. My guest is Dr. Seger Morris, who holds both a Doctor of Osteopathic Medicine and an MBA. He serves on the American Osteopathic Association Board of Trustees and is president-elect of the American Osteopathic Foundation. Drawing from his own fast-paced journey leading strategic initiatives in medical education and healthcare quality, he's the author of the new book, Let Me Lead, Escaping the Experience Bias and Excelling as an Early Career Professional. Dr. Morris, welcome to Get Down to Business.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Absolutely. You write that unconscious bias and structural barriers frequently keep organizations from leveraging the natural talents of early career professionals. What is experience bias, and how does ageism in the workplace quietly stifle innovation and growth?
Yeah, thank you. I think, when we typically think about ageism, we think about the other end of the spectrum. We think about bias against folks who are older in our workplace. But what we don't realize is that this can actually run rampant on the other end of the spectrum. What I hope to do in the book, Let Me Lead, is kind of draw a parallel to, okay, there's ageism in a rigid sense, but then how does experience actually come into play with that? And I think that's really where the problems lie in most organizations, is we lean on time as kind of the marker for competence and capability. And that's just really not the case. That's not how we should be looking at it.
Thank you, Seger. Absolutely. In your book, you teach early career leaders how to overcome victimhood by clearly differentiating influence from authority. For a young professional that's facing heavy bureaucracy, how do they build genuine influence when they don't yet, being the keyword, hold formal positional authority?
Yeah, I think the biggest first step is acknowledging that, hey, I don't have to have a position of authority in order to have influence and really demonstrate my ability to lead people to have the impact that I'm wanting to have. And so I think that's the key first step, is just putting that out of your mind and really separating that positional authority from what it actually means to be a leader, have influence, and have an impact. I think the way to go about that is really through education, through understanding yourself, and putting yourself not in a positional authority sense, but in a position to, hey, how can I step up to the plate and move the needle on something? And that's really kind of the sequence that I ask people to go through. But it really starts with a good sense of purpose and how do I want to have an impact in
You tackle the concept of work-life balance, calling it a fallacy, and arguing that searching for balance instead of alignment is actively driving burnout across healthcare and corporate industries. What does true synergy look like, and how does it solve the burnout epidemic?
Yeah, I mean, the balance in my view is nonsense. I don't think we're ever going to truly find this perfectly positioned fulcrum that kind of balances our personal life versus our work life. So separating the two is not the path forward. Alignment is kind of a step in the right direction, but I never get the warm and fuzzies that the direction the organization wants me to go is really doing what I want. So synergy is really what I think we're all after. And what that is really taking all of the moving parts of our life and really understanding that if they're working together, they're actually making each of the moving parts better than one of them would be standing alone. And so I think the more we try to position ourselves toward that end, the better off we're all going to be, rather than chasing this fulcrum that says, hey, how can I run away from my work life to be better at my personal life, and vice versa. It's always going to be a tug of war.
Yeah, and part of your framework includes the POSH model for positioning success. POSH: purpose, opportunity, strategy, and habits. Why do you emphasize that establishing solid daily habits is what keeps a leader moving forward when conscious willpower runs out?
Yeah, I think, kind of the best of the best, the most successful people talk a lot about sticking with the process, and you really got to love the process. And I think that's what that last part of POSH is the habits piece. But that's not the starting point. That's a key link to the latter half roar of where really looking into metrics. But it really starts with that purpose. Making sure you know who you are and where you want to go, and then looking for the opportunities to have that influence, outlining the strategy, and then sticking with the habits that are actually going to move the needle, rather than jumping the gun and trying to get to the outcomes and the achievements and all of that are going to be empty if we don't stick with the process.
Seger, you tackle the concept of work-life life balance, as we've been talking about over here. We also introduced the ROAR framework for measuring success, making a sharp distinction between daily results and long-term outcomes. How should an emerging leader evaluate their daily progress without getting discouraged by how far away the final destination seems?
Yeah, I think that's really an important step mentally, in making sure that we're staying on track and so on early in our careers. We can get so caught up in outcomes, the things that are the time horizon can be long, and the big thing with outcomes is there's so many moving parts, some that you have absolutely no control over. With results, the key distinction that I want to make is results are what happens directly from what you do, from your efforts. So as long as you're focusing on that, then you're the one that's accountable for both the successes and the failures. So don't get so caught up in the big picture of outcomes where there's just too many moving parts. So staying focused on the daily process that creates those results from your actions is really where you can see your career move.
It's not often that I have both a physician, executive, professional development advisor all wrapped into one coming on the program. Seger, I just want to spend a minute or two hearing your story of how all of those titles have all sort of blended into your life. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, well, the more I move through the journey, the more it's less about titles and more about just making sure I'm having the impact that I want to have. But I come from a family of physicians. I'm the 15th osteopathic physician in my family. And but I actually started out with a career in business before I kind of felt a void in my early 20s and decided to go back to medical school. And so I always had that business interest through my training. And when I got out of training, it was just a great opportunity to really put that into play and start to bring them together. So it's been a really rewarding journey, but it's also been an opportunity to learn some things along the way and ultimately pay that forward. So hopefully others don't have to make the same mistakes.
Yeah. And I guess my final question before, once again, I want to make sure folks can find your book is for business owners listening today who want to energize their teams. What's the one direct step that they could take tomorrow morning to stop siloing their young talent and start unleashing their leadership potential?
I would say the biggest first step is, and it's extreme, but take a look at all of your job descriptions, and anything that says you must have X years of experience to apply for that, just completely remove it from the standard. Because the more you can move to really keying in on what are the competencies and capabilities that I want from people, the more empowered the youth in your organization are going to feel to step up to the plate.
Absolutely. Seger Morris, I want to give you the final word where folks can find the book, Let Me Lead, Escaping the Experience Bias and Excelling as an Early Career Professional, where they can learn more about all the important work that you're doing.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to be here, have the conversation, and Let Me Lead will be available everywhere books are sold on September 1st. It can be pre-ordered right now. Again, the best place to go is to segermorris.com. That's SEGERMORRIS.com/Let Me Lead. And then you'll have links to wherever you want to purchase the book from there. So again, I appreciate the opportunity to talk on this topic of experience bias and how we can shape it.
Absolutely. Again, Dr. Seger, thank you so much. Thank you to all of our guests who have joined us today on the show, all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. We'll be back, of course, next Sunday at 6 p.m. Central Time on AM 560, The Answer, or, of course, wherever podcasts can be found. So let's get down to business. Can't wait to hear from you. Can't wait to see you next week. To success, let's get down to business.